Hey everybody at part 2, welcome back to another painting lesson. Today we're going to be doing a lake scene with some birch trees in the foreground. To get started, grab your canvas or watercolor paper and start applying some blue with a little bit of white to the canvas. And we're going to spread this evenly throughout the whole canvas, adding white in different blotches here and there to create some clouds. And we're simply just getting the impression of a sky here. There doesn't have to be any real need for any clear details, because as you see right here, I ended up going back in with a clean brush and wiping over that to blend it all together. And now I'm going to start creating the mountain. And in order to do that, all you need to do is add some blue and a little bit of red to create a light purple. The lighter you choose to go, the more distant the mountain will feel. So decide on what kind of tone you want to create in your painting and then start applying that color. Now to create the camel's hump mountain appearance, what I like to do is I start with the left mound and create kind of an upside down C, and then connect it with an R that hooks down on the right side. Okay, from there, I'm just dragging some hills on either side to the ends of the side of the canvases, and then coming back in with a little bit of white to blend it all together down into the bottom of the canvas. Alrighty, so now what I'm choosing to do is I'm adding some white to a round brush, and I'm using some circular motions to create what looks like some clouds or mist forming at the bottom of the mountain. And why I'm doing this is it just kind of looks cool, and it also will help separate the background to the foreground that we're going to make in a second with some grass and maybe a couple birch trees. So now it's time to start making those trees that I was just talking about. So what we're going to do for that is we're just going to add some blue, yellow, and a touch of red and white to a mixture. And the red is used just to neutralize the color a little bit and make it grayer. So depending on how gray you want the green to get, the more red you'll add. And then with any brush, you're just going to come in with the corner of the brush and lightly tap against the canvas. You can also use a sponge for this to create cool texture effect. Okay, notice I'm coming in and I'm just simply tapping with the corner of my brush up and down in different lengths and sizes, because every tree is going to be a different size and shape, and we don't want it to be totally symmetrical or perfect. Okay, I ended up coming back in with a little bit darker because it wasn't showing up very well. So if you need it to darken, always just add a little bit of blue, and sometimes you can even add a little bit of black to the mixture, so long as you still have some yellow in there to get the green. Alright, so that same effect we used before with the mist, we're going to use right now for the trees. And again, all you really need to do is grab some white with a round brush, and you're going to first create a line of where you want the mist to start, and then grab a clean brush that has a relatively soft tip, and you're going to use circular motions to blend that in with the tree line. So some parts might be white, while other parts are a little bit more translucent in that they blend in with the green of the trees. And this is exactly the look we want, because mist, of course, oftentimes is a little bit transparent. So different parts of it will highlight more white, while others will look more green. Then what we're going to do is use that same color for the trees to create a little bit of a grass line right below the mist. Okay, and we're just using that with any brush you have available, and you're just tapping along and creating a line to separate the mist with the bottom of the canvas. So now what I'm doing is I'm coming in with just regular blue, no mixture at all, just straight blue, and with a little bit of water added into it, I'm creating a nice mixture that I'm applying with a flat brush, and creating a line horizontally across the canvas right below where that grass line is. And why I'm doing that is because, as you'll see, once I start adding a few more blue lines here and there, it actually starts looking like we have some water, which is exactly what we want. And that's why when we first started painting, had the blue come all the way throughout the whole canvas, because right now we're using that background as the background for the water, and we're adding some darker lines on it to give it some liveliness and make it look like there's maybe a current. I'm also choosing to come in with a little bit of light green that we use for the mixture of the trees, and I'm blending that in near the grass right below it to create some reflections in there. Okay. Once that's dried a little bit, you can come back with some darker blue and create some more lines closer to the bottom of the canvas, again to make it look like the water is a little bit alive and is moving. Once you feel good with the water, what I ended up coming back and doing was adding some birch trees along this grass line that we just created. And all you need to do for this is use a thin brush or a flat brush and then water down some black paint and adding that and creating some lines to create the tree trunks, okay? And then this part can be a little bit tricky, especially with such a thin line. What you want to do is get some white paint either on a paintbrush or on what's called a palette knife, which creates this nice edge that you can use as a line against the tree trunk. And what you'll do is you'll just apply that line or the line of the brush to the tree trunk side and drag it down along the edges. And this will just create a nice texture similar to the one you would see on birch bark. And we'll see this technique again later in the painting up close, and you'll get a better idea of what I'm talking about. All right, so now what we're going to do is create some grass in the foreground, making a little bit of a hill. And the mixture is going to be some black, yellow, and blue, all mixed together to create a very dark green. That way, when we come back in a little bit, we can add some highlights to that. So remember, the darker you get this original color, the more options you have for highlighting it later, and the better it will have a contrast. Okay, then you're going to want to pause the video, let that dry, and then we're going to come back to it in a second with some lighter colors with yellow, a touch of blue, and some white to create a very nice light green. We're going to come in and add that now. Now, if you have a sponge available, that would be a great tool to use right now, because you can dab that into the paint and then directly apply it to the canvas and create this nice grass or even bush-like effect in the foreground, and gives it a really nice texture. Out here, I'm going to add right at the peak of this little hill. Again, don't do it everywhere, because then there won't be any contrast. Okay, I'm going to go even lighter, some more white. Do that a couple more times. Okay. Alright, now. Alright, once you have added those highlights to the grass, what I'm now doing is adding a couple more birch trees in the foreground, just like we did earlier. I'm just going to use a flat brush here with some black and drag a few lines from the top of the canvas all the way down to around the middle of the grass we just created. And one thing that I actually messed up a little bit on here that you might notice is on this third branch, I actually painted right over the mountain we created in the background, which was kind of a bummer, but once I did it, there really wasn't any turning back, so I chose to keep it and work with it. And that's okay. A lot of times in paintings there are things that we do that we might not originally like, but sometimes we got to work with it and be flexible. So now I'm going to go in, like before, with some white and use either a palette knife or a flat brush. And along the edges, I'm just dragging the white onto the tree trunks. So what I'm doing is I'm finding a spot on the edge of the tree trunk, putting my brush or palette knife down, and then dragging it sideways so that the paint collects onto the canvas and creates its own texture by itself. And this texture looks very similar to that of birch bark, so it works really great for this kind of scenery. Okay, and then once I'm done with the trunks, I come in with a liner brush or any really thin brush you have. You could also even use a Sharpie maybe once this is all dry, and come back with some black, and I'm adding a few different thin branches along here. All right, and here you notice I have those branches all filled in, and I added a little bit of leaves at the top. And how you do that is you grab a brush that has a wide spread, meaning that it's pretty thick, as you can see here, and it has individual pieces in it that will collect the paint, and you dab that into the paint thickly, and then dab it onto the canvas just like that, and it'll create this nice spread of different colors, similar to that of which when you would use like a sponge. All right, and the final thing I'm doing is I mixed a few different shades of greens, a couple darker shades and a couple lighter shades, and then watering those down and applying with a thin brush to create some grass blades in the foreground here just for some more detail. Once I feel good about that, the painting is all done, and you can feel free to sign your painting and maybe make it a gift for one of your family members or hang it up in your wall. I hope you guys enjoyed this painting lesson, and please let me know if there's something you'd like me to show in the future, whether it be a drawing or a painting. I would love to hear some feedback from you guys. I hope you guys are all doing well, and until next time.